In episode 8, using the hunting skills that Joel had shown her, she heads out and is able to kill a deer. When she eventually tracks it down, she's surprised because there are two guys standing over it. She's able to get the jump on them, and she has him at gunpoint, telling him, "Get away from it. It's mine." The two guys are from a local community nearby. It's a little bit of a religious cult. Their leader, David, is one of the guys standing over the deer. The community is really hard up for food, so they could absolutely use this thing. They're also going through a tough time because one of their own had just recently died. The ground is way too hard for them to dig to bury him. Conditions are really bad. There's snow everywhere. It's cold. Morale at this place is not great. In a nutshell, David needs a win. They introduce themselves to Ellie and say, "We're from a large community. We have women and children." And she cuts them off and says, "Yeah, well, I'm from a large community too. I have women and children, and we're hungry." David chuckles and says, "Well, that might be so, but you can't drag this thing back alone. Also, we're not looking for charity. We'll trade you." And Ellie jumps at that opportunity saying, "Well, do you have medicine?" And David's community does, in fact, have medicine. He sends his one guy back to go grab some. But it's going to be a bit, so it leaves both Ellie and David to hunker down and get acquainted better. He starts out by inviting her to his group, but she says, "Yeah, the Hunger Club? No, I'm okay." David's not discouraged, though, by Ellie's harsh nature. He explains that he's a preacher. 1 turned 2, turned into 3, so yeah, it is pretty religious, but it's also safe. Ironically, David actually got into religion after the pandemic hit. He starts giving Ellie his life story and finishes it off with, "Everything happens for a reason." And when she laughs at that, he says, "No, I'll prove it to you." And he says, "Okay, we didn't expect this winter to be so cruel. A couple of days ago, I sent 4 people to a nearby town to scavenge, see what they can come up with. Thing is, only 3 of them came back. And the one that didn't was a father. He had a daughter, about your age. But that guy was murdered by this crazy guy. And the thing is, that crazy guy was traveling with a girl. You see? Everything happens for a reason." This gets extremely tense for a few seconds. But David told this story because he saw that his partner had come back, and his partner gets the jump on Ellie. But to his partner's surprise, David doesn't take vengeance upon Ellie. He actually commands the guy to give Ellie the medicine. Ellie grabs it and gets the hell out of there, but the second command is pissed at David. Because he, like just about everybody in their community, wants vengeance. They want whoever did this to pay. And it certainly doesn't go over well when they get back, because the second command had told everybody what they found. They found a little girl that fit the description. So when they return with just the elk, and not Ellie or Joel's head on a spike, everybody's questioning David's leadership. He addresses the crowd and says, "Yes, we found a girl who was with the man who took Alex from us. At sunrise, I'll lead a group out, we'll track her down, and we'll bring that man to justice." One little girl speaks up, and she's the daughter of the guy who was killed. She says, "You should kill them. You should kill them both." And David walks over and slaps the crap out of her. He then helps her up and says, "I know you don't think you have a father anymore, but the truth is you always have a father, and you will show him respect when he's speaking." Of course, he's talking about himself, and it's pretty damn weird. And the thing is, nobody says a word about it. They just let it happen. Now, over with Ellie, it's also pretty tense, but for a different reason. Ellie rushes back and injects Joel with the medicine. Now it's just a waiting game to see if he gets better. She heads outside the next morning to go grab some ice to pack his wound, but then she hears something. And when she goes to investigate, it's David and a group of his guys searching for her. David has instructed his men to kill Joel, but bring Ellie back in, a decision that's not really sitting well with any of them. As they search the neighborhood for Ellie, Ellie runs back in the house and puts a knife right into Joel's hand. He's kind of conscious, but not really. She instructs him, "Do not fall asleep. There are men coming, and I'm going to try to lead them away from you. But if anyone gets down here, you kill them. Do you understand?" She then does her best to barricade the basement, and she heads out, trying to create a diversion. She does a pretty decent job, but her horse does end up getting shot, and she ends up falling off of it. She's a little banged up and dazed, and the guys that are with David are going to defy his orders and kill her. That is, until David stops them. He picks her up, and he takes her back to their encampment, instructing the rest of them to continue to look for Joel. They go door to door until eventually Joel is found. But luckily, he gets a sudden burst of energy and he kills one of the guys. He starts stalking the rest of them until one by one he gets them and traps them. He tortures the one into giving up the location of where they took Ellie. And now it's just a matter of getting there. And Ellie was taken back to David's community. He had to lock her up, but he really wants to keep her alive, even though everybody else wants to kill her. And she doesn't seem all that grateful about this. At first, he is nice, patient, just like he has been this whole time, but eventually his patience does wear thin. He's getting frustrated at the fact that Ellie isn't really interested in warming up to him. David leaves the room and lets Ellie think about the situation that she finds herself in. As soon as he does, she just tries to escape. She's finding out escaping from this cage is going to be easier said than done, but then she sees something that is truly upsetting. It looks like a human ear and other pieces of flesh on the ground. This comes at a really bad time, too, because David brought her in food, but as soon as Ellie sees this, she completely loses her appetite. Ellie asks David, "Are you just going to chop me up into little pieces?" And he says, "I'd rather not. I understand if you want to judge me." And Ellie cuts him off and screams, "Judge you? You're eating people, you sick fug." David doesn't deny this. He tells her that there's only a few of them that know, but it is true. It was the last resort. But what was I supposed to do? Let them starve? These people that put their faith in me? David starts talking to Ellie about how the two are a lot alike. And Ellie starts to seem receptive to the idea of staying there with David. Then it just gets downright creepy, though, because David starts talking about the life that they could build together. He even goes so far as to caress the top of her hand. But that's when she shows her true intentions by grabbing his hand and breaking it. She tries to grab the keys from him, but she's unable to. All it does is piss him off and show his true nature. He leaves, and a little while later, he comes back with another guy, and they're planning on killing her. She begs them to stop, but David doesn't seem like he's going to. The only thing that gets him to stop is when she screams, "I'm infected." That's because David was bitten by Ellie. They roll up Ellie's sleeve, and they start looking at the wound and discussing if it's real, if it's not, and Ellie jumps into action, grabbing a meat cleaver and shoving it right in the guy's neck. David pulls out a gun and starts shooting at her, but she's already on the move trying to get the hell out of there. She doesn't even know that Joel has made his way to the property. He's also found where they're stashing all these bodies that they chop up and make brisket out of. In an effort to defend herself, Ellie grabs a piece of wood from the fire, and she's holding it, waiting for David to come through the door. When he does, she chucks it at him, but she misses. The embers, though, light the building on fire, slowly. David, though, doesn't even seem to care about the fact that the building they're in is slowly going up in flames. All he's focused on is finding Ellie. He starts to hunt her. She's evading him the whole time, waiting to strike. And when she does, she stabs him right in the abdomen. While this wound hurts, it doesn't kill David, and he's able to throw Ellie down on the ground and start beating on her. He then gets on top of her, and it seems like he's about to rape her, but Ellie is able to grab the same meat cleaver that she had, and she starts bludgeoning him to death. She stumbles out of that building, blood all over her face, she's disoriented, and that's when Joel finds her. He can tell by looking at her that she has been through a lot these past few hours. She can't even get the words out to tell him what happened. She just gives him a giant hug. He tells her it's going to be all right, and the two make their way out west. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.